Welcome again to another session of Pier 71 Roadshow. In fact, this is our final session. So thank you for joining. Welcome again to our audience on Zoom webinar and also to those who are watching from the Facebook live stream. So this is our final session of the Pier 71 Roadshows, where we do a deep dive into one of the 17 innovation opportunities that we have for this year's SmartPort Challenge 2020. And today's topic is on maritime decarbonisation. And that is a very broad topic. And I suspect that many of you will have questions. And so as with most of our sessions, we will start with a very short presentation, a couple of slides, and then we will have time to take questions from the audience. So please feel free to use the Q&A function in the Zoom webinar to key in your questions. And we will take them as they come in. And if we run out of time to answer them today, don't worry, we will do our best to get our responses to you directly. So today we have with us Dr. Arvind Mithya, who is the lead for mobility and energy storage from the Ecolabs Center of Innovation for Energy at the NTU, Nanyang Technological University of Singapore. So I will now hand the time over to Arvind. Hello, thank you for joining us. Can you please introduce yourself, your organization, and then more about this challenge statement?
Okay, thanks a lot, Jessica. Thanks for that warm introduction. Good evening to everyone from Singapore, and a warm welcome to the others who are dialing in from overseas. Glad you're taking out this time to listen to what we have, and hope you will apply at the end of it for our program. So I will talk for around the next 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, outlining what Ecolabs is, what do we do, what is our role in maritime decarbonization, and how you can benefit as a startup or as a corporate. And subsequently, I will field any Q&A questions you might have. So without further ado, the core focus for us at Ecolabs Center of Innovation for Energy is maritime decarbonization. And we are here to accelerate any low carbon technologies for the maritime sustainability. So what is Ecolabs? Ecolabs is a national platform in Singapore. We are geared towards supporting startups and SMEs based here. We lead a joint initiative to invest in and commercialize solutions for sustainability in the maritime industry. And we do this through a number of partners. MPA is one of our core partners here, and we have a number of investors as well as maritime partners and ports who are partnering up with us in this initiative. What essentially Ecolabs does is divided across four areas. First, we help build capability, meaning with our technologies from NTU or from any other universities in Singapore, we are able to help startups which lack a technological edge to license out and develop new technologies. So that's technology translation. The second area where we support is on test bedding. We have a number of partners, not only within Singapore, but also globally, where new technologies can be deployed and trialed out. And this would make these new technologies more acceptable to a customer and therefore translate to commercialization. The third area where we support is on working with corporates to build co-innovation programs or learning academies, and also working with startups through accelerator program. And in this case, for maritime side, we are working with PR71, but in other sectors, we have our own partners for acceleration. The final area where we provide support is in business and commercials. Here we come through with funding opportunities and market entry opportunities to countries overseas, or for companies coming in from overseas market entry into Singapore. The funding comes through either our investor network or through our government grants. One of the key things that that Ecolabs focuses on when it translates technology in the first segment is on high TRL technologies. So TRL stands for technology readiness levels. What we are essentially looking for is technologies in the prototype stage, which need that little bit of a nudge and deployment capabilities so that it can be translated to a full commercial product. How we do this is in two areas: for corporates and for startups. So under corporates, we help them build certain co-innovation programs, work with them to probably use their sites of operation as test sites for new technologies, corporate investment arms, as well as if there are overseas corporates, we can work with these companies to partner as an overseas channel to either uh, provide an inflow deal of startups or an outflow of startups from Singapore to overseas. On the startup side, we again operate on the four different areas. The first is there are co-innovation calls and technology translation projects. This is on our website, ecolabs.sg. These are for multiple sectors, not only for maritime. Um, then the second area is we have a number of our test beds listed online. This is for market ready and also for deployment projects. The third area is acceleration for startups. This can be through our online application for other accelerators or through the Peer 71 for Smartport Challenge 2020. And the last one is we support startups on learning and training programs, as well as market entry programs through some of the partners that we work with. So that's Ecolabs in a nutshell. And now I'll dive deep into what we are intending through the decarbonization program. So one of the key drivers of the maritime decarbonization program is the IMO 2030 and 2050 targets. What we see is a $1.9 trillion opportunity for startups to basically drive towards this 50% reduction. What this has been estimated to be is a $50 billion annual investment requirement for the next 20 years to enable this sort of reduction in carbon emissions. And that is where Ecolabs comes in to support the decarbonization efforts that the IMO mandates. So we do this across four areas, and we have a certain type of startup that we are looking for. So let me focus on the technology areas that we initially focus on, and then get into the startups commercial angle itself. So on the technology areas, we have divided it into two parts. One is the port side, as well as the vessel or offshore side. On the port side, we have port or yard electrification. So this involves setting up solar or tidal or floating solar structures in ports or in shipyards to power a lot of systems in the shipyard as it becomes more and more electric. And also setting up bi-directional charging infrastructure, electrification of cranes, of AGVs, automating them, hydrogen storage systems, fleet management of forklifts and AGVs, and a few other areas under the port side or the shore side. On the energy efficiency side, this revolves around the vessel. So it's more about vessel propulsion, ship design, carbon utilization pathway technologies, and efficiency of different machinery on board the ship, as well as in some cases, the port. We're also looking at carbon capture here to minimize emissions and technologies in that sphere. The third area of technology focus is in zero emission vessels. So these are fully electric or hydrogen powered vessels, and also vessels which are looking to switch fuels. So maybe from diesel to LNG or to different types of hydrogen rich fuels like say ammonia. So under this, we are looking at hovercraft electrification, carbon emission reduction in vessels through hydrogen, carbon emission monitoring, hydrogen fuel cells, hybrid propulsion systems, and autonomous shipping as well. So this is one of our key interests as well under the zero emission vessels category. The final area on circular economy is both on the ship and shore side. How do we enable the shipping industry to go circular? And this would involve creation of intelligent materials, assets, tracking and tracing of different goods or even materials, recycling of these ships, scrap metal, urban mining, and even recycling of dredging sludge. So as you can see, it's quite broad. Um, what we are essentially looking at is technologies which have a carbon impact. So apart from an IRR, a return motive, we're also looking at what sort of carbon impact the technology translates to. And even if a startup's technology probably does not fall in this category, it might fall in certain adjacencies. We are still open to it as long as the value of the technology can be quantified in the form of carbon impact. So that brings me to what sort of startups we are looking at. Mainly, there are three major criteria. The first is the stage, the commercial stage of the startup. So we're looking at seed to Series A. We're not looking at pure idea stage startups. Um, the technology side is where we're looking at a prototype uh, being demonstrated or beyond. So we are not looking at lab-based technologies in this. We are looking at technologies that can be deployed for operational purposes. And we would create the sort of testbed sites that can enable this sort of safe operation. And the third area that we're looking at for the startups is a significant technology and business model innovation component where Ecolabs can support is on the technology side. We work with our investors to support on the business model side. Finally, we're not only looking at strictly maritime, companies strictly operating in the maritime sector currently. Even adjacent sectors which can translate their technologies to the maritime sector is something that we are interested in, and we would like to see your sort of application. So the way we support the startups in these technology or focus areas is through 8 different ways. First is on the capability building. We enable certain R&D manpower to enable development of the technologies. We provide infrastructure through our parent university, Nanyang Technological University, NTU, and our testbed sites all over Singapore and overseas as well. Um, we work with our network of investors to plow in direct investments. And since we are a national entity, we work with Enterprise Singapore and Maritime Ports Authority to secure certain government grants that can enable startups or small to medium enterprises to deploy their technologies. Um, we have a co-working space that is being currently set up. This is in the west of Singapore, in Jurong West, the Clean Tech Park. And this is an environment of clean technologies. So that would be then the exposure that the startup founders get access to. And finally, we provide functional training through our learning programs, as well as certain business readiness sessions through our corporate as well as investor network. Uh, the number here, SGD 150,000, gives you an idea of the sort of support we can provide. This would come in the form of cash as well as in-kind contribution. But if startups can look at this as something like a minimum, there are higher quantum of funds available, provided the use case is demonstrated by the startup. So to summarize, I would take questions after this. Please apply to decarbonize. We have mainly 2 avenues of for different types of stakeholders. So in this case, startups. Please go through the Smartport Challenge website. I think Jessica would probably give you a link later, but here is the link if you don't already know about it. And also corporates, if you're interested in any of these 4 areas I mentioned earlier, you can reach out to me directly on my email, and we can connect to see how we can work together. So yeah, I think that's it for me. You can go ahead and start shooting your questions.
Thank you very much, Arvin, for sharing that. And it's really useful in setting the overall context of where this decarbonization is. So you're looking for startups or solutions that fit any of those four focus areas that you mentioned,
Yes.
providing carbon emission savings to both the port side and the shipping side as well, right?
Yes, correct.
So we have an interesting question here from Santosh. He's asking, is this being a very interdisciplinary topic, can we partner with other companies and jointly apply? So can it come not just from one startup, but from maybe a consortium or with other partners as well?
So we would, we prefer a lead partner. I think if you're bringing on board technology from another partner, that's okay. But uh, we are not looking for consortiums. We are looking to work with one entity. So preferably if there's a lead partner, that would be good.
Okay, thank you. Santosh, I hope that answers your question. Feel free to get back if it doesn't. So yes, one lead partner so that you can liaise with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And we have another question on sort of the setup of Ecolabs. How is Ecolabs affiliated? Is it a public institute? And also in relation to the setup of Ecolabs and how you work with your investors, another question also asks, can we have external investors or apply for outside investments if we are also working with Ecolabs? So yeah,
Okay.
perhaps you can then talk to
Okay,
that.
sure. So great questions. I'll probably take the first one on Ecolabs. So Ecolabs is a neutral entity. We are agnostic to where our technology comes from because we are set up by Enterprise Singapore, which is basically the Singapore government's body. So we are agnostic to where the technology comes from, and we are here mainly to facilitate startups and SMEs. We are funded by Enterprise Singapore, so that also removes any possibility of bias that we may have.
Mhm.
Um, um, was there a second part to that question?
No, no.
Okay. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
To the question, can we have external investors or apply for outside investments? Yes, you can bring in your own investment and you can work with us if you just want the infrastructure. Most of the companies that do work with us come in that model. So we are open to that. Um, the, the, the core thing to note is when you work with us on leveraging our infrastructure, um, if the funding is entirely brought by you, there is no IP sharing. So the entire IP belongs to the company bringing in the funding. If there is a partial fund sought from either Ecolabs or MPA or the government of Singapore, then there would be a sharing of IP involved. And this would be on a project to project basis based on the amount of funds the different parties contribute.
Okay, thank you. So we can go back to sort of helping our audience to better understand their potential technologies and solutions, whether that actually can address green or decarbonization. How would you explain in terms of what are the technology areas that you're looking at? So is it really just anything that can improve efficiency, anything that can capture emissions and monitor and track emissions?
Yes, that's a good point. So what we are essentially looking at in terms of bottom line is, can it translate to a carbon impact?
Mm.
And if that can be justified, then yes, we would be keen on working or supporting this startup. Yeah,
Right. So they should be able to demonstrate that the solution does have that impact.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I, yeah. And that also then leads to that whole impetus for why this is such an important topic, right? Why Ecolabs is looking at it, why governments around the world are looking at it, IMO is looking at it. Could you perhaps share a little bit more on maybe the strategic angle that this is also coming from to show the importance of this area?
Yes. So as I had mentioned earlier, one of the key things driving this initiative is the IMO targets.
Mm.
And Singapore is one of the top ports in the world, which is closely tied with IMO's regulations. So we see this in two ways. One, from the emissions reduction angle, which is where there's the direct carbon impact. But also we are looking at electrification. We've seen this across multiple industries already. In electric vehicles, cars, we've seen huge disruptions happen. We are seeing it in the aviation sector slowly with air taxis, and it's only a matter of time before it hits the maritime sector, and probably already hit in certain areas. So the ports need to be ready for this sort of disruption, which is where the technology layers and components need to be plugged in before that disruption happens, or to enable that disruption to happen. And that is where some of the core focus here is to enable that transition from the current mode of operation to fully electric, as well as carbon reduction, emission reduction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's also very much in line with the directions that MPA is heading towards. So, I mean, even in our own R&D focus areas, we have
Mm-hmm.
port shipping green technologies. Recently, we had our first maritime decarbonisation
Yes.
international advisory panel. So these are all
Yeah.
sort of the efforts towards building up our capabilities to meet these long-term emissions targets. Yeah. So this
Yes.
is definitely a very key area that Ecolabs and MPA will be looking for solutions and from startups to come and submit them. Maybe do you have examples of some decarbonization startups that you have worked with to perhaps give a sense of those that you have invested in or that are interesting? You can share with our audience.
Okay, so I can't probably take names here, but I can probably give you certain use cases of the technologies that we've worked with. So um, one of the examples is we've looked at dredging. So right now, there are dredging vessels off Singapore's shores, which are using diesel-powered systems to basically operate cranes. There is there is an interest to convert that diesel powered system to fully electric to save fuel, or to make it a hybrid of diesel and electric to ensure fuel savings, and that in turn translates to de- uh, decreased emissions. So that's one area that we've looked at. Another area is small yachts and ferries have uh, routine operations uh, between fixed ports or landing sites. Uh, what this causes is a defined operational cycle. And this in turn means that you can design a ferry for fully renewable powered or fully electric to meet that sort of operational requirement. So that's another area where we're looking at, where ferries and yachts are probably fully electric or fully renewable. The third area we're working on is on charging systems on shore. This is mainly to if vessels start going electric, one of the key things which we already see on the electric car side is, are there enough chargers? Can these chargers meet the fast charging requirements? Can they meet the power requirements at the port? If not, how do you manage these power requirements? So there we are already working with a much larger company, not a startup, but in Singapore, to design solutions and deploy them within the next year to year and a half. So these are the different sort of sample of technologies that we are looking at. And as you can see, it's demand driven. It's not so much about regulation driven. And that is where we think we can add a lot of value to these companies which are looking to enter these sectors.
Mm. And you're also open to startups that are working on deep tech areas on alternative fuels, for example, or even like
Yes.
efficiencies through automation of port equipment, maybe even monitoring of engine sort of efficiencies and improvement of ships' vessel overall efficiencies as well. Yeah.
Yes, totally. The IoT side for improving vessel efficiency as well as monitoring is
Mm-hmm.
something so as I said, Ecolabs is not only in maritime, we are in other sectors as well, like in buildings. So we have worked with a number of IoT companies there, and we see that sort of translation. I mean, we can support that sort of translation in ships as well. And that is where these are areas also that we cover. And have the key thing is to have the sort of testbed sites where new solutions can be deployed. And we have secured a few of them. So startups don't need to worry about, oh, I've developed the technology, where can I deploy it and demonstrate to my customer?
Mm. So we are calling for any startups that can reimagine their solutions to be able to meet these needs, to be able to improve energy efficiency in the port side and the shipping side. And Ecolabs is prepared to support and work with these startups. Maybe just one more question for the corporates as well, for corporate partners who may be listening in. I think you shared a bit about how they can get involved. Are there specific types of corporates that you're looking for, whether it's those who want to do vessel test bids or more on the port side? Anything on the corporates?
Okay, so with corporates, we just reflecting back to my last slide, probably if I can bring that up again. Sorry, just a minute.
Actually, that question just came in from Ikang Bopak. What areas of collaboration do you see between Ecolabs and corporates? So yes, probably a bit more clarification and that would be helpful.
Can you see my slide now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on the corporate side, we mainly collaborate on 4 areas. So co-innovation, testbed sites, investment, or channel partners. So let me dive a bit into each one of this. So on the co-innovation side, the corporates might have certain gaps in their portfolio, looking to develop new technologies or looking to demonstrate new technologies. We work and help support on that side. So it could be in the form of either infrastructure or manpower or actual support. The second area is on testbed side. So here, if corporates are looking to trial new technologies and are willing to offer up certain infrastructure. So I'll give you an example. We're working with an SME in Singapore to provide a shipyard where we can deploy solar panels and battery storage systems. So if a corporate is also interested in offering up some of its sites for test bedding of technologies that are relevant that the corporate is interested in, that's another area of how we collaborate. The third area is investment. So a lot of corporate investment arms approach us because of a strong technological due diligence. We are primarily a technology-driven center. So we can support the startups on the technology due diligence while the corporates focus on the business due diligence. And the corporates can work with us to develop certain investment programs where we source startups for you based on the needs you provide. The final area is channel partner. So here we're working with a couple of entities, like right now in the Middle East and in Europe, where we will, once we identify certain startups in Singapore and who have specific use cases overseas, we would leverage off these corporates overseas to deploy these technologies from Singapore at those sites. Or if the channel partner overseas has a certain startup that they are partnering with, they can guide them through us. So basically channel those startups to us to demonstrate technologies here. And that's another mode of collaboration with corporates.
Okay, thank you. Yep. So, okay. So for startups who are wondering, that this challenge statement seems a little bit differently framed. So most challenge statements that we have in our SmartPort challenge have a corporate partner. So this one is with Ecolabs, but not to worry. There are corporate partners who can come on board to working in Ecolabs. And also during the phase, if you get selected to our acceleration phase, that's also another platform where you get to meet a lot more corporate partners who can then sort of validate your solution and be potential test bidding partners. Yes.
Yeah.
So with that, maybe I can just sort of summarize and also round up. So Ecolabs is looking for Ecolabs and MPA. We see maritime decarbonisation as a very important topic, both now and for the future towards the IMO 2030 and 2050 goals. And there are many opportunity areas for startups to support carbon emissions reduction. So you may not immediately think of yourself as a green tech startup, but even an IoT automation solution, as long as there's an improvement in carbon emissions, this could be something that we're looking for. So do feel free to submit your proposals, and Ecolabs also can give you access to co-investors, test bidding facilities, and also the corporates to do pilot testing.
Yeah, just to add on, sorry, Jessica. Yeah, I saw that one of the questions was from WOPAC. So
Yes.
we remember one of the drone companies, which was I think interested in gas tank inspection, also wanted to work with us. See, that's another area that we look at. So first thought, you might think drones, hey, that's not decarbonization, but we see an angle of energy efficiency and
Yeah.
monitoring, which can bring about decarbonization. So as if you're a startup or corporate, don't hesitate to reach out. Uh, the focus areas we mentioned are core areas, but there are other ways that we could work together, even though it does not fit in that particular set. So please do reach out, and yeah, we would be happy to assist in any way possible.
Yes, thank you very much, Arvind. Thank you for your time and for your sharing.
Thank you
And
so
I would,
much.
yeah, thank you. And I would like to thank very much everyone also for being here with us, for your kind attention, and especially if you've been with us for a few of these sessions. So Ning and myself, we're both very happy to have hosted these sessions online with you guys. We've also learned a lot along the way. So now just a few quick announcements and reminders. Firstly, the closing deadline for our SmartPod Challenge is on the 10th of August, 2359 Singapore time. So that's almost exactly 10 days away. You're not too late. If this challenge area or any of the others interest you, please do head over to www.peer71.sg for the application form, and we look forward to receiving your proposals. Once again, we welcome startups at any stage and also startups that are overseas. So do feel free to join us. Secondly, on this area of maritime decarbonisation or green technologies, that's one of the open categories of our SmartPod Challenge. And we also welcome proposals in other open categories in the area of smart port and smart shipping, and also green tech. So similar to what was shared, if you think your solutions can help to achieve these objectives, please do send in your proposals and we will channel them to interested parties. And who knows, you might need a corporate, a partner who's interested in your ideas. And lastly, if you missed any of our sessions, there is a playlist online to view past roadshows. Do go into YouTube and search for Peer 71. And so, yep, for those who have still stuck around with us, again, our Accelerate program will be in September. We have sessions that are exciting for startups, including IP management, branding and comms for startups, and also crisis management in light of COVID. So these are some of the potential topics to look forward to for selected startups in the Accelerate program. Some of these sessions will also be open to a wider audience. So keep tuning in to our publicity channels to get more information. And if you have any inquiries at all, at any point in time, these last 10 days, feel free to contact enquiries@peer71.sg and we'll get back to you. Okay, so thank you very much, Arvind, again for your time, for your
Thank you,
sharing.
everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, everyone. And we look forward to your proposals. See you again soon, everyone, and take care. Bye.
Yeah. See you. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.